And welcome to Funzi's Using Digital Media to Advance Your Career. If you're new to the Funzi platform, Funzi is an award-winning educational mobile service from Finland that's on a mission to provide quality learning and training that's accessible to everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few house rules. Please do engage with us and share your comments and questions in the live chat. Technology can be unpredictable, so if you get disconnected at any point in time, please feel free to refresh and join again. And please do stay until the end of the event to receive a special discount code that will grant you access to the Funzi resources. Now, there's so much more to social media than a mindless scroll. And if you play your cards right, you could have, a few tweets could land you a dream job. The job market is extremely competitive and people are getting more creative in order to get noticed. So jazzing up your online presence and getting smart with what you post online can ultimately help you secure your dream job. Studies show that about 93% of employers turn to social media networks when hiring new talent. Joining me today to unpack how we can use social media to advance our careers is Pride Talia, who recently founded Archetypal, a boutique personal branding and business strategy consultancy that provides purpose positioning, customer empathy, and digital activation. Pride has 18 years of experience connecting brands to purpose and profit, and she's held notable roles at SAB Miller, Brand South Africa, Cadbury, Stanlib, Nedbank, and Foschini Group. She also serves as Chief Consumer Officer at LifeCheck, a fintech startup. And she also serves as the director at She Says, the only global network for women in advertising and other industries. And she also holds an MBA from the Gordon Institute of Business. And she's also a published researcher in the Journal of Brand Management. Welcome, Pride. Joining me today as well, we have Talia Goldberg, who is a freelance creative director and social media strategist. She co-founded a startup called Nifty 250 in 2014. Now, in 2014, and then she sold it. She then went into creative directing for Seattle Coffee Company. Talia writes and curates a weekly newsletter, Curiously Created, which includes the best long reads, podcasts, series, and wine suggestions. Currently, she works with numerous local brands and she brings their brand and voice alive across influencer campaigns and social media content. So it's safe to say we're all in safe hands this evening. Ladies, welcome to the conversation. I'm very excited to be engaging with the both of you. I want to start with you, Pride. You bring clarity to complex situations. In terms of helping businesses with their strategy and their personal brands. How does one build a personal brand? I mean, should we create a plan with objectives in mind when we develop our personal brand?
Thank you, Andela. I'm also so happy to be here. Welcome, everyone. You've asked a very beautiful question about should we build a personal brand? Yes. You definitely should build a personal brand. You already have a personal brand. Whether you're actively managing it or not managing it is maybe the question. You should actually start managing it more actively because it's your pathway and your gateway to environments where you want to find yourself in. So whenever I speak to people about that, I always say, build your personal brand. And should you go about it with objectives and a plan? Look, you're a business. And I love that quote with Jay-Z saying, you are the business of your life. You are the CEO of your brand. I've heard so many people say that. So I'm definitely paraphrasing and quoting, but they're all very much correct. The same way you'd go about a really good strategy, writing objectives down for what you want to do when it comes to a project or the corporate that you might work for in your 9-to-5, you should do the same for your personal brand. It'll help you with direction. It'll also help you with clarity. And it'll also help you focus on your purpose because when you start writing down what you want to do, it must be about you first and how you're going to influence the world in a positive way. And that's how your personal brand sort of comes to life. So yes to both. Have your objectives in line, decide what you want to do, but definitely actively manage your brand or somebody else will manage it for you. And you don't want that.
Thank you, Pride. Now, As individuals, we're constantly changing and we're discovering new things about ourselves. Is it good to, brand ourselves?
It's tricky. Yes, it's good, but it's tricky. When we build product brands and services, we have the privilege and the luxury of choosing a persona for it. We can choose an archetype and we can decide that this is how your brand will translate itself in the world. So you look at major brands, think of Nike or, any other brand that you like. Somebody sat down and constructed exactly what that persona should be. And that persona doesn't change unless the brand team or the organization decide that that should change. You as a person, you evolve every day. You grow, you get new information. You almost have to decide what you're going to do with that. When you move from job to job, you learn a little bit more about yourself. When you start a new entity or a new startup, as Talia will talk about her experience, I'm sure she's evolved in many ways over the years. As you do that, there are some things that are consistent about you. Who you are as a person, your almost your archetype and your character doesn't necessarily change, and that consistency is what builds the brand. So figure out what your consistency is and figure out who you are and decide from the inside out, before you even say anything. And then that's when you're going to get the consistency that you need. But do we grow and change? Absolutely. Should that stop us from building a brand or feeling like we're not going to be authentic? No, it almost has to, I love transparency as well in brands. It helps you almost say to yourself, I'm a growing brand and I'm an evolving brand, and this is how I'm going to manage that. And you being a brand doesn't mean that you must be overexposed. So you must only also just carefully construct and decide on the things that you want to share so that you are protected and you are able to actually consistently show up in the way that you decide is appropriate for you at the time. And be comfortable changing. It's part of life. It's part of who we are. Just don't, fake it till you make it. Just be yourself. Absolutely be yourself.
Thank you for that, Pride. I'd love to bring you into the conversation, Talia, because you've worked closely with, brands like Sunglass Hut, Seattle, Switch Beauty, and so many more brands, and you've been using digital media. For someone who's wanting to use social media to possibly land a job or gain new clients, what are the best and most effective ways of using social media?
There are so many ways to use social media to get clients. And as Pride was saying, having your personal brand obviously does help. I've been freelancing for myself. I started freelancing again in January 2020. And literally every single client and every single job I've booked since then has literally been through social media. So I know that social media 100% works when you put yourself out there. And on the flip side of that is every creative, every designer, every photographer that I've used in these jobs since January 2020 have been people I found on social media. So I could never have found them, or I never would have heard of them if it hadn't been for Instagram, if it hadn't been for LinkedIn, if it hadn't been for Twitter. So I find in terms of that, the people I find the best are people who are posting consistently and having kind of across platforms they're posting, and other people shouting out their work. And that's how I generally find people. And it's just the most amazing way to put your portfolio online. And even if you're not necessarily that consistent with it, like I have a portfolio page, I don't update it often, but it's in my bio and it's there. And it leads to so much work, and it's so little work that I have to actually put into the page. But what I get out of it is amazing.
I'm so glad you touched on the fact that you use a variety of social media platforms, because we're so spoiled for choice. Is there a specific platform that the audience should be focusing on in particularly? Like, is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? I mean, how have you used all the different platforms to get new clients?
I think it really depends on you and the job that you do and the job that you want in the future. So if you are a photographer, or if you're someone who's a very visual person, obviously Instagram is the most amazing platform for sharing visuals. If you're someone who is trying to make it as a comedy writer, having your tweets blow up, amazing. But even if you look at someone like Elsa Majimbo, like I think she only started posting her videos maybe a year ago, and she's now got like well over 1 million followers. Rihanna has a new bestie. And I think someone like that just proves that you don't have to have a background in comedy. You don't have to have be famous or know people, and that literally great content or content that really resonates with other people is always going to break through and people are going to start sharing it. So it really depends on what you're wanting to do. I do find LinkedIn is an amazing platform, I find, for following brands that I love and seeing what they're doing kind of behind the scenes. I think some brands use it really well. I think most South African brands aren't really on LinkedIn and using to its best potential yet, but I generally enjoy using it. It really, I would say, just depends on who you are and what you're kind of looking for, and also who you're trying to attract the attention of. Because you can really, like, if you want to pitch something to someone, you can really find out who owns the company, who is the marketing manager of a certain company. You can add them on LinkedIn. These are amazing resources that people didn't have access to 10, 15 years ago.
I'm very glad you touched on LinkedIn, because I'm a fan of LinkedIn, and if ever I want to find out who works there, I do, as you say, look at the people who work in the organization, what the organization is about. I'm going to pose this question to both of you ladies, and it is a LinkedIn related question. What are some of your top tips or your do's and don'ts when it comes to LinkedIn for a personal brand?
I would say I'm the ultimate LinkedIn stalker, and I will definitely slide in a DM if it's someone that I really admire or something, a project that I really want to pitch or something. I don't do it often, but if there's something that I'm really obsessed with, I will definitely slide in. I do find that LinkedIn is a very weird platform in terms of the messages. I mean, how many hello, happy birthday messages can you get? And I do find there's a lot of spam, but I definitely think that if you use it, if you're looking for someone specific at a specific company, I wanted to do a campaign with a specific company 2 years ago, and I had no idea how to reach them at all. So I literally did a little Google, found someone's name, put it in LinkedIn. There was his thing, there was his email address. I emailed him, and the campaign happened. So sometimes it's literally using it almost like as a detective.
I actually like that. I think a don't with that one is try and personalize your messages. You can always tell when someone's sending you like a copy paste kind of message, which is pretty much spam. And you can almost imagine whoever's the CEO or the CMO of a business, they're getting a lot of DMs. So rather make sure that your direct message is actually, capturing in some way. Like, don't just say, the same line that you say to everyone else. They can definitely pick it up. And I know that I receive a lot of messages, but the ones that are like personalized are a bit more distinct. So you almost end up answering those first. And also you don't get to a lot of them as much. But yeah, I also would recommend it as a stalker platform, because you get access to people that you never, ever, ever had access to. But not only that, everyone's looking for new ideas on LinkedIn. People go there to actually read up on innovation, and there's topics that you didn't even know that people were looking for. So share your ideas, be okay with some of the ideas that you're okay being open about, and engage with people on that level, on the level of solving and on the level of the work that you do. I think using LinkedIn as a personal branding platform is great, but talking about yourself all the time can be very boring. Talk about your project, talk about the work you do, talk about, the success of your team and your collaborations. And those are the things that people are actually going to be very interested in. But yeah, don't spam people, personalize it a little bit so that they can engage with you on an authentic level.
I love that. Thank you, ladies. Now, one would say that the key to good social media etiquette is to ensure that we use the right words, and how we present ourselves is always in check. Pride, from a personal branding point of view, when you're building a personal brand on social media, how does one keep a consistent image? Should we be keeping a consistent image?
You said two things there that stood out for me. One revolves around, watching your language or freedom of speech as such. And the other one is about consistency. So I'll start with the easy one, consistency. When we build brands, we talk about consistency in a way that's how people almost familiarize themselves with brands. And one of the reasons consistency is a factor is because, think of your own good friend. When they start behaving differently, you're kind of like, what's going on? Are you okay? But at least in that context, you have the luxury of asking them, is something different? Has something changed? But that doesn't mean saying the same thing all the time. Consistency actually speaks more to authenticity. when you're being yourself, over time, there's a consistent feel and message and being about you that even if you changed one small thing, it won't necessarily derail what people believe about you. And the best way to gain consistency is to focus on the problem you're solving in the world or the beauty you're bringing to the world and less on yourself. I know it's so weird because I keep mentioning talk about your project and not about yourself, even though we're talking about personal branding. But really, it's very hard to keep a consistent, I guess, write-up of self, because some days you just feel different or you support something different. But if you focus on the work that you do, then that comes through much easier. So yes, I do vote for consistency in talking about the things that matter to you. When you focus on your purpose, that matters to you. When you focus on the things that you're solving in the world, that matters to you. And those are things that are going to influence the world and get you the tribe you're looking for, because those are people who believe in what you believe in. When you're creating something beautiful in the world, people want to follow that. So that's the consistency that I think I subscribe to, as opposed to being very rigid with your brand, because you're an ever evolving person. When it comes to language, however, that is a very difficult subject for a lot of people. Here's the thing. I am a woman about free speech. I actually think that a lot of times when we say to people, check what you're saying, it almost falls to the old traditional that we've all been taught to almost like watch yourself. I believe in transparency, and I believe in almost like the openness of my feelings and thoughts. But social media is not my journal. It's not my personal, journal. It's not my psychologist. So you almost have to find an equilibrium with what you're trying to do and say. Share what you're thinking in a way that because you're trying to reach out to people, you're trying to influence a space and influence people. Speak in such a way that ask yourself, if I put this out there, will the people I'm trying to reach be able to digest it and absorb it? Not accept it necessarily, because a lot of things that I'm about might not be acceptable. I have a lot of questions as a woman that I was never allowed to question. So I will be putting that out there because that's my brand and that's my message. I will be challenging the status quo of many things, and it might sometimes be seen as a bit out of line or in the traditional sense. But it doesn't mean that I will do it in a way that's disrespectful or that I won't actually reach my audience. But that's my decision to make. So ask yourself, if I'm trying to reach the other person and at least meet them 30% halfway, that kind of vibe, will I be able to connect with them? And then I can decide on my strategy to slowly influencing and changing their minds about something. But I don't believe in censorship. I don't believe in any of that. I really believe that the authenticity comes from transparency and you being yourself and you being mature enough to know when a message is right. If you know your message is going to be damaging a whole lot of your brand associations and the things you've signed up for, then you're just self-sabotaging. Then you're just going out there to challenge the world for the sake of. You're not actually positively influencing or changing something about the world. So give yourself that conversation and say, am I just being disruptive, or am I actually actively trying to put some positivity into the world? And I think the last thing on that is there's enough negativity in the world. There's many ways to say what you want to say, but positivity will get you the right answer every time.
Love that. Now, Talia, you make relevant contributions to Twitter and on Instagram. You're very bold about your opinions, and with trending topics and things that are often related to worldly events. I think it's important to stay abreast of what's happening in different industries and in the world as a whole. For you, how important is it to engage in those conversations? And we were talking about censorship earlier, but is there a line that we draw, to avoid coming across as too controversial? Or, how do we go about that? I mean, yes, do we engage in these conversations, and where do we draw the line?
One, I think you have to engage in the conversation. I mean, not everyone has to engage in the conversation. Reading the news and being up to date with current affairs has always been something that's very important to me. I think I've been reading the newspaper probably since I was 15, whether it was in real life or online. I read the news every single day. I pride myself on being someone who's well read, and I've always been a very curious person. So I read pretty broadly. So I feel like I wouldn't say that I'm controversial in what I share. I think I'm very opinionated, and I started sharing opinion pieces because I feel like I read such good quality long reads. And one of the things that when I made a list of if I was going to be an influencer and how I wanted to influence people, like the main thing that I wanted to influence people besides going for long walks, because I think long walks are the best, is to read more and to read better news sources. Because I feel like because of Instagram and because of social media, there is a lot of mindless, endless scrolling and not so much consuming amazing, good content, which is what I genuinely find the links on Twitter, and then I'm landing up sharing them on Instagram most of the time. I would say I'm not controversial. I would say very opinionated. There definitely probably have been people who have unfollowed me for it, but most of the interaction that I get in my DMs is people thanking me for sharing like such interesting reads. So I enjoy finding them, reading the articles and sharing it. And I think people enjoy reading them too, from what I can see with the engagements and the click-throughs. And like whenever I share podcast links, it's the most saved post on my feed, and I can see that people are sharing it. So I can see it's content that's doing well for me and that people are enjoying it. And it's something that I enjoy doing. So I'm kind of going to continue doing it.
Thank you for that. Now, social media really has the power to connect us with the right people. LinkedIn is quite powerful in that sense. People have met and made friends through various social media platforms. Pride, how important is it to connect with a network, whether it be through, different groups on social media, or through LinkedIn DMs, as we spoke about earlier? How important is that connection?
I think, Ondela, we're as beings built for community. And one thing that I appreciate about social media is that when I didn't have that as a platform, I don't derive my energy from people. I actually am very much internal on my own. So I wasn't able to network in my earlier years. I wasn't able to go out there and connect with people as much as everyone else could. And what social media has done is allowed me to walk into spaces and rooms that I didn't have access to. And also not always to engage actively, but sometimes to listen and to learn and to absorb and just like, bask in the amazingness of all these people that I'm engaging with on these networks. So definitely connect. If anything, you're going to learn something valuable. You're going to absorb something that you didn't know before. You're also going to learn a lot about yourself. And new information, like Talia is saying, it just enriches the soul, and you become even more curious, and you grow in your mindset, and you grow in your career. So definitely connect with communities. You don't always have to be active in those communities. You can sometimes, kind of be a lurker, which I sometimes am. But if you are active, share your thoughts and share your views. The more you share, the more you realize how much knowledge you have, and it actually stretches you as well to expand in your thinking. And not only that, your personal brand then stands out, which is, a beautiful added bonus. So I definitely advocate for really good communities. It enriches your feed as well, and it can actually be the best encyclopedia you've ever had. So definitely use networks for that purpose.
Thank you so much for that. Talia, earlier you mentioned something about having a digital portfolio. Would you say that it's vital for job seekers to have a digital portfolio, or just is that dependent on the kind of industry that you're in?
I think it's definitely dependent on the kind of industry you're in. I mean, obviously, if you're a medical doctor or you're a lawyer, it's not necessarily going to be something that you need. If you're a creative, if you're a writer, if you're a photographer, if you're in the film industry, there's so many different industries where you're an opinion leader, you're a thinker, you want to collaborate with other people. Having an online portfolio is so amazing for people to be able to see the work that you've done in the past, and for you to be able to reach out and say, even whether you want to say to someone, I'd love to collab with you on this project, this is the kind of things I've been working on, can we chat? And then people can have a look at the work that you've done in the past, the brands that you work with, what your aesthetic is, what your style is, and see if they want to work with you too. I honestly cannot recommend it enough, especially for designers. everyone that I found and worked with has literally been from Instagram and other people recommending them. I think it's such a powerful tool for young creatives to get their own jobs and be able to freelance and work for themselves and not have to be within an agency all the time, especially post-COVID. I think there's so many people who want to be able to kind of do that, live the lifestyle where you work all over the world when that is a thing again, but you can literally sit in a cafe in Cape Town, you can be in Bali, you can be wherever you want to be and have a laptop and be able to work because of the power of social networks, like bringing in so much consistent work.
Can I add to that, Andela? Because I think, Talia, I think I love what you're saying, because also the lawyers and engineers also want to be in Bali. So
yeah. Work from home.
I do think that an advantage, especially with something like LinkedIn, is that if you're in an industry where you can't display what you do, you at least have the opportunity to then link the projects you've been part of as part of your bio or as part of your listing. And then another thing that you can use there is ask people for endorsements. And what's great about that is that even if you can't showcase what you did visually, the people you've worked with can then endorse you for it, which is great because it's usually senior leaders that you've worked with who then say, wow, loved working with you on this because you were so efficient, great, knowledgeable, and all those things. And that can serve as a type of portfolio, especially for knowledge workers who don't necessarily have creative output that they can show to the world.
Thank you so much, ladies. I want to grab a question from the live chat. Please send through your questions. I know our guests have a wealth of knowledge and they will be able to answer you. But I have a question that I'd like to pull from the chat. It says, I feel like everyone has a professional headshot on their social media, but I can't afford it. Is it an absolute must?
It's absolutely not an absolute must. I don't have one. Honestly, most of the photos that I post on my Instagram are taken with an iPhone. Literally find yourself a friend with an iPhone or a phone with a great camera. Get some good lighting, work on your pose, get comfortable, maybe even get a selfie stick, a self-timer camera. It really doesn't have to be a professional shot in a studio. I know Andela has the most insane professional photos, which if you can afford, definitely do that. But you definitely, it's not necessary. It's not gonna make or break whether you get a job or a client. Definitely not.
I totally agree. And I mean, our phones today can do so much more than they could. In fact, I think my picture is from my phone. So if you do want to opt for a picture, definitely take it with your phone and edit it a little bit with the app, and then you should be good to go.
Thank you, ladies. I'm going to pull up another question. I think this is a very interesting one. And we're speaking about the tone and being consistent a little bit earlier, but this person wants to know, should I have the same tone of voice on all social media platforms? Or is it best to be more professional on LinkedIn, casual on Instagram, and more chatty on Twitter?
I remember there was a meme like that. It kind of shows 4 blocks and says, this is me on LinkedIn, this is me on Twitter and Instagram. Here's the thing. I think each platform has a tone about it already. So as you're engaging, you'll know which way to flow. It doesn't mean you're not being yourself. You're just maybe more comfortable speaking on Twitter than you are on LinkedIn. So as your comfort levels change, you can change your, it's not necessarily tone, it's just adapting to the environment that you're in. You also don't have to be on all platforms. Not all platforms are built for you or me. I have a Twitter account, but I don't necessarily post much on it. I can't keep up with the pace, and I'm not sure, I find that it almost drains me as opposed to inspires me, whereas Instagram does the complete opposite. But because I'm in this environment and this is the work that I do and I like deriving information from there, I use it for different things. I don't necessarily use Facebook at all, but it's great for when you're running business. What I'm saying is use them as you please. use the tone that's most comfortable to you, blend to the environment here and there so that you can actually engage and connect with people and allow yourselves to loosen up a little bit. It's not as rigid as maybe we make it sound. It's actually a really incredibly expressive space. And then be curious with your own self and figure out what's comfortable for you.
I remember when I first started working, my first internship was at a digital marketing agency. And I remember they used to tell us, you have to post 4 times a week in order to captivate an audience and to be engaging. Now, I would love to know from you ladies, is it possible to annoy people by posting too much and engaging too much?
Talia.
I guess it depends on your personality. I guess if people are going to find you annoying, they're going to unfollow, and that is that. Is it something is posting too much? I'm not sure that there is. I follow overseas influencers who post their stories they post so much that their stories, the little lines on Instagram, you can barely see them because they're posting hundreds of stories. And I think a lot of what they post is perhaps, to me, it's an overshare of their family and their kids and stuff that I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with. But I also realize that for people who have families and kids, those are the kind of people that they're drawn to because it's similar to their lives, and that's the kind of content that they want to see, and that's why they've managed to build such a big following. So I think it really depends on your brand and what the message is you're trying to get across. And I think often we don't put thought in what we're trying to get out of this experiment of social media. Like, we're building our personal brand, but ultimately, what are the goals for it? Are you trying to sign new clients? Are you trying to be an influencer? Do you want brands to want to work with you? What is the goal of it? Are you just trying to entertain your friends and family, posting funny memes? Are you trying to make people laugh? I think consistency when you're actually posting as a brand is incredibly important. I think personally, I go through spaces where I don't post to my feed I can go for months without posting to my feed. And then suddenly I take a picture that I really want to be on my feed. And then suddenly I'm posting on my feed a photo a day for a week, and then I can stop again. It really just depends. I mean, I go for coffee every single day, and every single day I post a photo of my coffee, and that's just me. Does it annoy people? I'm not sure. I think that if people do find your content annoying, that they will just unfollow. And the people who are drawn to your content and do find you engaging and do enjoy what you share will continue to follow and will tell other people to follow you. So I think it's really not trying to change yourself for other people, but rather letting the people who enjoy your content find you.
I love that.
I think you're a magnet, and you will attract the tribe in that way. You know, you'll attract people who want to hear more from you, who want to read up what you're doing. If you're using it as a business tool, however, there's also analytics that can tell you if your message is engaging and it's resonating, or if you're just, you know, shooting into the sky and you're not getting necessarily any reciprocal engagement. So if it is a business that you're running on the page and, you know, you are the personal business, just look at your analytics and see if you are resonating, if you are engaging, if you're getting the traction you're looking for, if you're trying to grow your community page so that you can, you know, monetize it. Are you getting the right engagement, and are you getting the right growth? Those things will lead you in that direction. But, you know, if you're just like me and everyone else who's just trying to also just be themselves and enjoy the space for what it is and build your own tribe in that environment, then, you know, just be you and allow people to come through and enjoy what you do as you do it. I know that there's times where I don't want to post either, Talia, but I've had recently a break from social media, and I received a DM and someone said, so are you going to come back and tell us about X, Y, and Z? I was like, I didn't realize anyone was listening. Oh, okay, cool. You know, so you do get that feedback from people who really, really want to engage with you, no matter how much you're posting.
I'm so glad you mentioned analytics, because for some people, that's a completely foreign concept. People don't even know that there is a back end to Facebook or Twitter or, you know, Instagram. What, you know, for someone who has never heard of Google Analytics or analytics as a whole, I mean, how would you break that down and explain that to someone? You know, what does that back end look like possibly? You know, is it, you know, demographics? Is it the number of likes, engagement rate, reach? I mean, how does that look like?
I think most of the platforms are now kind of operating very similarly. And depending on whether you've set your page as a creator page, business page, or just an individual page, or a lot of people, a private page, so we can't really reach you, you'll get feedback in the back end that kind of tells you how well or how engaged your posts are, how many people they've reached, and how many people took action from it, whether they went to look at your profile, or if you've put your website there, if they've gone to see your website, if you have one, or if they forwarded the information or saved it. That already tells you if people are interested in what you're saying. I know that a lot of people like to save and read for later, so it does signal to you that people have actually saved something that you've posted. And the really great thing about that is it can start to signal if you have multiple interests and you really want to start focusing on one or two. It can start to kind of signal to you what people are interested in at the time. Look, things change a lot on platforms, so it's always good, I think, to focus on yourself and what you want to do and what you want to put out there, and then rather measure that if you're looking for measurement. You can also then start boosting your post. I see lately, I see a lot of personal brand people boosting what they want to talk about or themselves, which is fantastic. And that you do in the back end as well. You pay for it, and you can choose your audience. You can say you want to target, women in this region of this age, and you want to connect with them. And it's a great way to put your message or your project or yourself out there as well, if you want to do that. But with that, remember that it's good to have an action afterwards. What do you want people to do, as opposed to just saying, hi, I'm here. Do you want them to follow you, connect with you, collaborate, whatever it is that you're working on, put that out there. I'm a big advocate of just remembering that people want to get engaged into really good things. So give people something at the end of your message, which is great.
Thanks, Pride. I actually have a very interesting question here, which goes back to, trying to find a job or potential clients. And I'll pose this question to both of you ladies. Is social media a demonstration to perhaps potential clients or employers that you have good technological skills?
I think it depends on technology, because I can be really, really good at social media and terrible at other technological things. So no, I don't think it's a good indication whether you're good at technology. I think it's a very good indication of whether you are good at creating content for an audience. And I think creating content and curating content and probably building a community around yourself or a brand, if that's kind of the portfolio, and just showing off the work that you do. I think that I would say pretty much everyone 30 and under has a pretty good sense of how to use social media, because they use it in their everyday lives, whether they started really young, having a Facebook page, posting albums of family photos, and they now have an Instagram as a personal page. And I think to some extent, because everyone uses social media, people have seen people who do social media as a job as, oh, it can't be that hard, everyone can do it. And I don't think they see how much work goes into creating content of a professional level and curating it, and to be able to actually take content that drives sales and has actual analytics and statistics behind it, and that you're actually trying to generate something from it, rather than just get a couple of likes. Oh, you look so cute, your dog is so cute, kind of thing. So I think it's more about those things rather than being good at technology.
I think the other thing to think about is, when we're recruiting, I always see, whenever we're recruiting for a digital strategist, a lot of people who are in social media strategy applying for the role. And social media is only but a portion of what a digital landscape would look like, because you still have things like Google and Google Analytics that you want to look at, and other channels that you're going to be using for advertising and storytelling. Running a website is something that is completely foreign to some people as well. So all those back end things that are part of like the universe of digital, social media is only but a portion of that. So yes, it's valuable to know how to storytell and how to use social media, but it doesn't necessarily translate into knowing, the full digital scope of things. Not that it's impossible to learn, but it's definitely not the same thing.
I have another interesting question here, and it says, if you have more than one brand, example, a corporate job versus a side hustle, is it best to merge them or separate them?
I can take this one because I've had a side hustle for many years and I've been in a corporate job some years I'm on, the business side. So I've done like a hybrid of different situations and brands. Look, I think it's a completely individual picture and answer. And the reason for that is it depends, one, how aligned your personal brand is to your side hustle. I usually advocate for alignment because you're one person and it's a lot of work running two brands. Just like any company will tell you, launching two brands is literally launching two businesses. So you have to think of it that way. So if there isn't much alignment between the work you do every day, and by alignment, I don't mean it's the same thing or there's a conflict of interest, because that's also something to consider when you have a 9 to 5, that your side hustle, you have to have agreements with your organization and your manager or your leader in terms of what you're going to be working on if it's not in conflict with the business. But alignment is more from a values perspective and things that you actually believe in. If there is alignment, definitely you've got room to merge. If there is complete distance and you don't feel comfortable merging the two, then you can separate them. I, at the beginning, said that I believe in transparency. So I know for a fact that a lot of people who support the work that I do and the causes that I support and the things that I advocate for love my, whichever life I choose to be in at the time. And I find that that fluidity is what actually helps me arrive in places that I would have never been invited to and brings authenticity to the table. So I like merging and I like being one person with multiple, interests. I mean, you're so multi-talented and you have so many facets about you that are actually like great and influential. So find a way to perhaps create those. But if you really, really just want to build an entity on its own and want it to flourish on its own, and sometimes you want to be behind the scenes of something that you're building, that's also acceptable. You can literally build that entire entity without putting yourself at the forefront of it. So it's really situational and it's really a personal choice. And it also depends on the objectives you have for each one of them. But where I do think that you should advocate for alignment is just like the purpose and the values of the things that you do, that they're all aligned. It's quite funny when I see someone saying, oh, I care about the environment and here's my plastic company. It's like, babes, no. There has to be
on social media.
I know, I see it a lot and I'm just like, woo, okay.
I find the whole environmental and sustainability chat is something to wrap your head around, just because I find that most brands who want to pay and work with people who create content are probably the worst offenders, and they'll have like a capsule collection for that thing. And this will be like a sustainable blogger posting about like one of the worst companies possible. I'm like, how are we aligning this? I'm not sure. I don't get
it. It's also like, I think my activism with women has taught me a lot about how people see this as like, over here, I am supporting women, but over here, I'm collaborating with brands and people who just overlook the rights of women. And you're like, no, you actually need to understand that there's so many other brands you can work with which believe in what you believe in and which advocate for the cause you believe in. So go for those and they will go for you because, you've got aligned values.
Synergy is very important. Thank you for mentioning that, Pride. I also have another question here, which says, which platform would you say is more suitable if you have teenagers as a target market?
TikTok.
TikTok.
It's just, I mean, as a target market, I'm going to guess that's for a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Not a personal brand. So if it's for a brand and you really want to sell to teenagers, probably TikTok is going to get you the most unbelievable reach. And you can now advertise and boost posts within a specific area like Cape Town, or choosing your different countries or cities that you are in, which is amazing. But TikTok is its own monster, and it is very, very, very specific content does well on TikTok. So you would definitely need a teenager consultant on whether your content is going to work or it's just going to flop. Definitely work with someone who actually makes content for the space, is doing well in the space, who can actually help you, because I can promise you, just trying to go into TikTok from Instagram stories. It's probably not going to happen.
Pride, do you agree? Do you have anything to
100%, especially with the teenage consultant part. I always hear people saying, okay, I'm on TikTok, I know what I'm doing, but you don't know teenagers. They're a completely different breed. But also generationally, it's so hard to, and you must never underestimate that everyone has their own rhythm and vibe. So yeah, ask someone, ask them to come on board and help you with it. Be open to learning and actually don't take anything for granted. And then, if you're a millennial, you're old, get with it. Yeah.
I mean, I need to get with it. I've never used TikTok. I tried to download it and I still don't know how to use it. So I need to get with it.
I mean, I'm a millennial and I got kind of asked to consult with this very, very extreme Gen Z brand. And I was like, I don't really think I know what is cool for Gen Z. Like, I know Emma Chamberlain and I know a few cool Gen Zers, but like, I can't tell you anything that if they're going to think this is cool. I can tell you, I know a millennial will like this, but Gen Z is its whole own thing. And you really need to have very good research saying that this is what they're gonna go for, not just kind of guessing or doing the exact same content you would do for a boomer or a millennial and hope that it's gonna connect, because it probably won't.
That's very true, Talia. I want to bring it back to personal branding. There is a question here about personal branding. It says, should one post more professional posts? And at what point can we merge our personalities, between sharing random posts talking about non-professional, annoying content, with talking about one that, whilst talking about one that, I'm going to rephrase that. Okay. In building a personal brand, should one post more professional posts? And at what point can we merge our personality, which is sharing random posts and talking about non-professional or maybe annoying content?
I have a few friends who've kind of struggled with this, where they've gone from posting very much family friend kind of content to wanting to have a personal brand or wanting to be an influencer or wanting to talk more about the work that they did. And because they didn't come from a background where it was common to post about yourself in this way and almost talk about yourself, I don't want to say in the third person, but really talk about the work that you do beyond just, hi, this is me doing whatever. They found it very difficult and they found it very weird to be posting about themselves in this way, because they felt like it was almost like showing off. So I would probably suggest bouncing the ideas and the content off your friend who has the best knowledge of the space or seemingly does it the best, and just really, I find with all of these kind of things, it's all about gaining confidence in yourself. And the first few times it is very strange, and you'll probably overthink it for a week or two and you'll think, is this caption right, is it wrong? But I find with everything you become quicker and quicker and better at it, and now I don't have to think twice about a caption or if I want to post this or not post this. Is this my personal brand? I know exactly what it is. In terms of, I don't think there is an old you as a personality and your job are not in alignment, unless you hate your job and you want to quit tomorrow, but then you should be posting about the dream job that you want. So I think all of this, it is really weird and awkward at first, because you think also your friends and family will be like, why are they posting this content now? It is a bit strange, but just get going and just start, and just bounce ideas off people and see how it goes.
I think that traditionally we've been taught to separate our personality. Have you met those people you see them at work every day and they're like this, and then you meet them at the mall or something, you're like, oh, this is actually really fun. And had I known you were this fun, we'd be friends at the office. So it's also important to recognize that traditionally we've been told to almost like behave a certain way in a work context or work environment, because there's decorum and all of that. But what I can say is, back to my transparency and a little bit of just freedom and leeway to be yourself in all contexts. Like Talia said, it'll be difficult at the beginning to sort of blend your different walls that you've built along the way. But I think it's extremely tiring being one person in one context and another in another, and then being very restrictive about it. So give yourself a break, exhale, and just, try and figure out how to find a middle ground. Like we've been saying throughout the talk, if your space is aligned in terms of the dream you have, the things you want to achieve, the current job you have might not represent that, but you are not your job. You are actually your work and your passions. You are actually the things you want to do. So you can actually talk about those things openly alongside your interests for hiking and visiting new restaurants, and alongside your love for wine. It's all very much the same person. And the truer you are as this unified person, the more authentic you are, the more authentic you come across, and the more people are almost drawn to you. And they are intrigued that you actually have so many sides of you that are interesting. So use it, like just you talk about all the things that you're passionate about equally as you feel appropriate. Don't feel the need to separate so much. It's besides it being a little weird and old school, it's tiring being different people.
I guess it goes back to, being true to you, which is something you said a little bit earlier about, just be yourself and be true to who you are. I have a very interesting question here. It says, how can a social media manager showcase endorsements to build trust on personal profiles?
Not sure. It's weird.
Can you read that again?
How
Sorry,
can a
Talia.
social media manager showcase their endorsements to build trust on personal profiles? I think this is someone who's wanting to showcase their expertise, and they want to know, how they can gain people's trust.
It's a portfolio question.
I mean, I think that's a bit of, I don't know. I don't know if you can gain people's trust, but I think that you can definitely showcase the work that you've done, the brands that you work with. I've often seen the question posed for people who are not necessarily the content creators, but are the community managers. Like, how do you showcase that you did a really good job of managing this community and having witty, funny replies, or de-escalating a situation that was kind of going nuclear, or taking conflict resolution? How do you actually show that you did that? And in a lot of cases, a lot of people have seen the answers like really screenshot, and make a portfolio. Often, unfortunately, if you are working with bigger brands, there are NDAs and there are clauses that you can't necessarily showcase that online, that you are now the voice of Castle Light. No one's going to know. Like for huge brands, it's not going to be applicable, but you can have a personal profile that when you are applying to other jobs, you can kind of show that work. But I don't think that you necessarily be able to show it on your own personal profile unless there was a smaller brand and you have permission. It just really would depend. I think for that kind of thing, the other thing you could do is there are lots of accounts that show really good work. So you even keeping up to date and saying, wow, this was a really, like McDonald's did this campaign and this was really good work. And whether it's in your stories and you are kind of keeping up to date with trends on community management and how different brands have engaged on different subjects. I think that's always, people always like thought leaders and people up to date with knowledge and how other brands are doing things. It shows that you're also curious and that you read. So I think doing stuff like that could also work.
It also goes back, Ondela, to endorsements and recommendations where, if you can ask, I really believe that whenever I do a project, at the end of the project, not much later, I try and request for feedback, or also because it'll help me improve, but where possible, recommendations, which can be public. So you can use that. But there's also a method similar to what Tanya is saying, which is attribution. So whilst you're working on whichever account it is, although you can't talk about the work directly that you do or showcase it because of NDAs, you can refer to a successful campaign because that's what we publicize, and talk about how our team did very well on that, because then it attributes you as a team member in the team, even though you can't specifically in that situation perhaps say exactly what you do. But over time, the method of attribution helps people understand that you are part of this team and this ecosystem that's producing the great work that they're seeing. And also because teamwork is, a pass the baton method. Without the good content, the community manager has very little to manage. While without a great community manager, great content can get lost in chaos. So, it's a partnership, and it's good to use attribution so that you're also giving credit to the full team, but also placing yourself at the point of the project that says, I'm involved in this and I'm really proud of it. And I work with amazing people. And that is very attractive for anyone who wants to work with you in future.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I have the final question before we close this evening. And this is a very interesting one. I think I've personally battled with this one as well. It makes me a little bit cringy actually, but I'm going to ask it and throw it at you ladies. And it says, should I have my boss and colleagues on my social media platforms?
I guess it depends on what your boss and colleagues are like and whether you're really good friends with them and what the situation is. I've been people's bosses before, and generally the people that I worked with were around my age, and we did have a friendly relationship. So I was friends with them. I've had other bosses that I would never add on Facebook, and it is always weird when there's someone you work with and you get a friend request and you're like, I really don't want to be friends with this person. But my Instagram and my Twitter, at least my Instagram is open, so anyone who wants to follow follows me, and I'm very cognizant of what I post and who is seeing it, so that I really don't mind. But Facebook has always been a very weird thing because it is seen as more of a friendship and family social media platform, at least to me, how I use it on my page. Not that I use it very much anymore.
I actually had once upon a minute a boss who I noticed would make very smug comments after a weekend based on where I was that weekend. And I then realized it was because of they were reading into my social media. So I'd get comments such as, oh, I worked on Sunday because we have so much work. Oh, I see you at a wine farm, which kind of insinuates that while the rest of us were working on Sunday, you're having a good time. But guess what? I was having a good time because I know work-life balance and I know how to literally, take care of myself. So I think it's a personal choice who you want to let onto your page. Again, trying to manage people's their perceptions of what work should be, their perceptions of you, and manage all of that is very similar to me as trying to manage multiple personalities between work and home. I find it exhausting, and I actually find that you spend more time on outward things as opposed to inward things. So I think we're not all public people, and I think that's why some people have their accounts private on Instagram. Keep to your comfort levels. You'll know when you have a toxic colleague who's using your information inappropriately. That's normal. It's the same as having a general troll on a platform. It's the same as having somebody actually infringe themselves on your private space. And that's why they have privacy policies. So you should apply those things according to how you feel and how comfortable you feel. The same way you would do it with a stranger, the same way you do it with a stalker or someone who's trying to bridge the privacy barriers that have been placed by the platform. Social media by the platforms by their nature are to protect you as well. So protect yourself from toxicity if that's the case you're experiencing. There's nothing wrong with blocking your very immediate colleague if you don't feel comfortable in that space. It's called, taking care of your space the way you want to. There is a little bit of what I would say, don't be too paranoid about what people want to find out about you, because people will create stories anyway. I think just find yourself good people with great energy and who really want to promote what you do, who are inspired by you, and let them into your community the same way you'd allow them to do that for you as well. But if you're finding that it's difficult and it's toxic, then you can block. But as a mature adult who works in a great place, you can also have the conversation with them directly to say, man, come through with a little bit of positivity. So it's your space, use it as such.
I would like to extend a huge thank you to my guests this evening, Pride Monatlala and Talia Goldberg, for helping us understand how to use social media to advance our careers or businesses a little bit better. And to all of you at home for joining. You can connect with our guests if you would like, or if you want to consult with them. you can do so. We will put up their social media handles and their businesses as well, so you can, get to know them a little bit better. And I'm sure they won't mind if you reach out to them. And there is a discount code of 30% that is available for you to gain access to a variety of Funzi courses, and it's valid right up until the 30th of September. You can use this code BRAND30, and you can have access to their amazing courses. I've tried a few. There's an array of them, leadership courses, and they're very enlightening. So thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I hope you have a wonderful evening further.
Thank you, Andela.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Talia, for sharing.